Dennis Hughes arrived exactly at the moment he had been asked to, and quietly. No one saw the car or carriage or limo that had dropped him off. It was almost as though he had simply appeared out of thin air. Dennis introduced himself to the doorman and after a few simple exchanges was allowed entrance. All this, and he did not have an official invitation to this party. The doorman would later be questioned as to how he could have let someone in that he had not recognized, and the doorman would simply reply he seemed like he was part of the help. A little unorthodox and a little lost, but definitely part of the help. I let him know where to find the servants' quarters, for which he thanked me and embarked without a second word. Dennis did in fact go straight to the servants' quarters. Once there, he found a locker in the quarters which had been left open. All of the other lockers in the preparation area were accounted for, all with secure key padlocks, all neat and new and in their place. But it was a single locker that had no padlock, and looking at the floor, he noticed a shard of cast iron metal strewn about the floor. Curious. Dennis opened up the locker to find a full uniform with white gloves, bow tie, and everything else he would need. Dennis borrowed the items, for he would indeed return them later, and found the nearest stall to disappear into to change. He didn't have to replace his trousers nor his shirt, but he donned a new and more quaint blazer along with the gloves and a less ornate belt. Dennis came out of the stall to find another laborer getting ready at the sink, a younger gentleman who seemed nervous and was hurriedly combing his hair. Dennis didn't look him in the eyes so as not to attract attention, but he opened up a can of the supplied pomade and began to slick his hair just like the other male servers. After a moment, and with his own satisfaction of readiness, Dennis joined the line with the other workers, who were already in full swing preparing their deliveries, rushing to and from downstairs to the lavish party going on above. This particular party was being held at the Berkshire Manor, one of the only remaining castles in Europe which could still function as a type of fancy hall for the finest soirees. Many elites had been invited, not only from Europe but also from the Americas. They would not have seemed to have had anything in common. They were all from different industries, many of them even conflicting, but they did all have one thing in common, one thing that they would not have expected, and it would all be revealed tonight. The honored guests did not even take a second look at Dennis as he served them. No one did. Dennis was of average height and of plainly average demeanor. He could give off such unassuming airs that one might think almost nothing of him at all, nothing offensive, yet also nothing extraordinary. When he walked up to the head porter and asked for instruction, the porter did not even take a second look. He gave him his orders and awaited the next buffoon whom he employed to come along asking him with some irrelevant question. Dennis also had a slight smile, which on a normal occasion would make him seem somewhat terse and even perhaps snide. Dennis was far from those things, but on this occasion it seemed to suit him. The distance between the help and the guests was essential, especially considering the vast class disparity present and how important this grand meeting was to someone. Most of the guests there still had no idea why they were there at all. Most hoped it would be a chance for some financial dealings. A handful of others hoped to romance and be romanced, and one individual in particular, of whose desires would take the full evening to uncover, wanted something unimaginable and far more sinister. The first celebrity that Dennis approached was Madame Dunitra from Norway. Dennis and Madame Dunitra had been acquaintances once, or so Dennis remembered her. She did not remember him. They had crossed paths in college where she made crude advances towards him. Advances that Dennis always made note were never returned. She spread a rumor about Dennis that he had a disease, so to speak, out of spite. Rumor stuck to Dennis easily, although he could never tell why. Perhaps it was because he was so secretive. When people would approach Dennis to ask if the rumors were true, he would merely shrug his head and twist his lips and shrug his shoulders. That was just the Dennis way. Though Dennis couldn't escape rumors, he found himself obsessing over them. Although it wasn't the gossip that so often presides inside of rumors he was after, Dennis was after the truth, then and now and always. Even with the tray full of shrimp salad garnishes in his hand, Dennis was hot on the trail. He had decided, to the surprise of many, to drop out of college at an early age. His major had been obscure to begin with, some specialized field in archaeology, but he also spent a lot of time studying psychology to find just how and why people came to be what, how, and why they were. No one quite knew what Dennis had moved onto after college, only that they suspected he would land on his feet eventually. It would have come as a great shock to those who had known him as a younger man, an inordinate deal of them happening to be present in the very room on this very night, to find Dennis serving them hand and foot as a servant. Dennis handed one of the small bowls to Madame Denitra, and she, without making eye contact, thanked him dryly. Next up was the automobile tycoon, Alpheus Brown. He had a hostile mustache and small beady eyes which beefed from behind two large round and thick glasses. Despite the strength of the prescription, he would still squint from them from time to time. It wasn't the expression of a man's face he had trouble seeing, he would say. It was the contents of their soul. Such spiritual evaluations were often the result of Alpheus trying to get something from someone, rather than the reverse. And true to form, Alpheus bumped into Dennis just so that he could grasp a shrimp bowl, and then right off to his next hustle. There was also the actress Athenia, who looked like she'd rather be absolutely anywhere else in the world. As Dennis passed, she curtsied and smiled coquettishly, but he did not respond. She had thrown the same advances to 3 of the other waiters who had passed, but all of them had nervously retreated, not wanting to invite trouble nor jeopardize their menial but fairly compensated jobs. Dennis, on the other hand, ignored her completely. Dennis began to approach his next target, a financier named Charles Banyan. But before he could reach him, a loud voice called out over some microphone, bringing the party to a sort of halt. "Hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for attending. I assure you that tonight will be a most special night, one for the history books, as they say. I know you are wondering why I have brought you all here tonight, and what is looking to be gained or lost at this party. I can only assure you that you will all find out very soon." Guests at the party, nearly 20 in number, all stood around nervously, most with smiles on their faces, as though this was some kind of grand and garish gesture, perhaps even some kind of joke. They murmured amongst themselves, but the voice on the microphone was so loud and consistent that they lost their trains of thought and so simply continued to listen to the voices' words. "I do plan to join you all, and shortly, but first, I think there should be a dance." There was a large portion of the hall that was raised and butted up against the furthest wall. The raised stage was made of a solid and treated wood and shimmered against the chandelier and candlelight present at the hall. After a moment's pause, there was the sound of footsteps, and band members suddenly appeared, all dressed in white blazers and black slacks, bow ties, and rose-red lapels. They all seemed to be a bit older than the average musician, but they all swiftly and dutifully tended to their instruments and, seating themselves, raised their hands in readiness at their station. "So let's get swinging." The voice over the microphone was still playful and jolly, if not ominous, and as soon as it had said these words, the players began their music, and not able to resist, the guests soon began to dance. They would still question the nature and cadence of the party, all asking each other if any other had recognized the voice over the microphone, but most could only answer no and would simply continue on dancing. Dennis Hughes slipped away. There would be less need for drinks and treats while the music played, and there was something deeper within the establishment that he would need to check. Up above was still the housing which had housed kings and queens some hundreds of years before. Dennis knew they may contain secrets, and it was his sole purpose to seek them out. Dennis escaped into the foyer, posing as though he were on submission, and with little question gained entry to the stairway and made his way up the stairs, all without a soul noticing or a single eye being turned by his movement. What Dennis would find upstairs would surprise him, and eventually come to shock the many guests at the party. Dennis would later question himself, would only that I had arrived a moment sooner.